Hello, EMI SIG members and distinguished guests. I'm David Stuhan, your EMI SIG Steering Committee Chair. I also want to acknowledge my Vice Chair from Pantex, Daniel Gleaves. I'm proud to welcome you to the 2020 EMI SIG 34th Annual Meeting, which is the first all-virtual meeting to date. This meeting was originally to be held in Walnut Creek, California, before COVID-19 shaped all of our lives. Maybe it's a blessing in disguise. I'm sure everyone has heard about the seismic activity and the latest news surrounding the San Andreas Fault. What a way to end 2020. Now that's a joke for our California colleagues. This year's theme is Bridging the Emergency Management Enterprise. This year's goal is to implement best practices that bridge and consolidate emergency management efforts and initiatives throughout the enterprise. I'd like to acknowledge our sponsors for the annual meeting: Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, the National Accelerator Laboratory, and Sandia National Laboratory out of California. I want to thank them for their sponsorship. It's amazing what you can adapt to in order to come together for such an important event such as the annual EMI SIG meeting. Even a pandemic can't stop this group of dedicated professionals from coming together to exchange best practices, ideas, lessons learned, and simply to network together. The COVID-19 event has highlighted why EMI SIG and its purpose is so important. I've seen my colleagues across the DOE NNSA enterprise come together in the time of need and share vital information. Thank you for that. This is something that we should all be proud of and be very thankful for, that we have each other, that we're willingness to tackle the hard stuff together. I'd like to thank and applaud Jen Hutchins and the entire EMI SIG team for the incredible efforts in transitioning this from an in-person meeting to an all-virtual meeting. This team basically moved a mountain. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank the current EMI SIG Steering Committee. Jose Berrios, our NA41 sponsor, Daniel Gleaves, our Vice Chair from Pantex, John Lombard from Nevada, Michelle Baker from Oak Ridge, Robert G. from Y12, Eugene McPeak from Sandia, John Riley from Livermore, Ted Morales from Hanford, Ivy Hidalgo Oberding from Brookhaven, and Cindy Rowell from the Savannah Riverside. The steering committee is really interested in adding another team member to our steering committee. So if you're interested and you can influence emergency management at your site or across the enterprise, we ask that you please send your name or a nominee to Jen Hutchins. This is our first ever all virtual event, and I'm sure it's going to be innovative, engaging, and memorable for us all. Be sure to take some time out of your busy schedules and explore the diverse set of presentations, the social events that are virtual, as well as our subcommittee breakouts. This is a chance for you to learn as well as to share information and support each other during these extraordinary times. Thanks for being with us, and let us know what you think of this year's event. I'll see you all at the awards ceremony. Thank you. Next up, it's my pleasure to introduce our EMI SIG sponsor, Jose Berrios, who will join us to welcome you to this year's virtual meeting. Mr. Berrios is otherwise known as JB. He's the director of NA41, Office of Emergency Management Policy. JB's extensive career has given him the opportunity to serve at all levels of operations, from tactical to strategic, in which he's trained, managed, and led specialized teams in the execution of missions and tasks in support of the Department of Defense, Department of State, U.S. Secret Service, Defense Threat Reduction Agency, and the Department of Homeland Security, among others. JB commanded and served over 26 years in Army Specialized Units. He earned a graduate certificate in environmental management from the University of Maryland and a Master's of Science in Military Studies from Marine Corps University. Please join me in welcoming JB.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and distinguished EMI SIG members. This is the 34th EMI SIG annual meeting and a little bit different. So I first want to welcome you all to this new virtual way of doing conferences and annual meetings. It is a great honor for us to host this conference. I know there's a lot of value that we get out of it, and it's also our hope that it will be a very interesting and learning experience for all of us as we all get so much out of this conferences and these meetings. This is a first, so We'll hope to get back and get as good as we did in Tennessee last year. And this one will be a different experience, but hopefully we'll get a lot of out of it. So the last 5 months, everybody knows they have changed the world. No, not only have we seen an incredible health issue throughout the entire United States and the world, but we also have had the ability to experience some new ways of doing things, looking at things from a different angle and different perspectives, which is what the EMI SIG and its membership is all about. Taking a look at how things are being have been done, how are we doing them, how can we improve on those, and by sharing all that information, it's uh, it's beneficial to all of us, specifically the enterprise. So this is a new way of doing business um, for DOE and NNSA, and it's along with the entire federal government. So we're not the only ones that we're in this boat. So we also need to improve, see what the impacts are with the information and the environment as it changes, not only from a pandemic perspective as we're experiencing now, but from some other future events, even national disasters or anything like that, which is what we're all about. So, so in the context of our community, the EMI SIG has a vital role to play. Is a volunteer organization. It has representatives from the entire enterprise, and that's what makes this consortium of people such a great venue and avenue to exchange great ideas and do things better and more efficient and more focused throughout the enterprise. Because all of us are involved in emergency management. It is extremely essential that we exchange the information so that we understand how things work, how things are not working, and it prepares us to handle any emergency in the in the future, not only from the enterprise perspective, but over, but also from the national government and the local areas perspective, where emergencies are all different at every place. Different things happen. So being prepared and exchanging the information, lessons learned from one facility to the next, it enables us to get to where we want to be. I mean, we're all responsible for insurance for ensuring that folks have a great work to play place to work. I'm sorry, and also that the organizations are capable of handling and managing any situation. If not, as an organization, we as an organization and the government cannot maintain and fulfill our responsibility that is entrusted upon us to protect the public and the environment and the workforce. So much has been achieved by the EMI SIG in the last year. Very good products, very good actions, and there's always something more to do. So there's a lot that remains still to be done, and there's a lot of folks out there from the subcommittees and the different sites that continue to, through their professionalism and their passion for the mission and the safety, continue to contribute and exchange information. And that's why the theme is so appropriate. Not that we knew that this environment was going to be upon us during this EMI SIG, but it's appropriate that our theme has to do with bridging of all of our information, bridging of the capabilities that we have. Because as we are all working from remote sites in different locations, it's it's an advantage to be able to pick up that phone or shoot an email and say, "Hey, I'm working on this. Have you experienced that?" And we hope uh, that we are all doing that as we go along. It's the knowledge and information within the groups that we have here is in the personnel is extremely invaluable. I mean, the quality of the technical programs is world class, and the spectrum of topics that all the subcommittees and the working groups and all the other collaboration groups that work through this EMI SIG and what we call the the enterprise data management system, the EDMS. That is just a tool. Is a tool to provide all that information, exchange that information. And throughout the conference, I will come back up and I will brief you on, give you a quick presentation on what the steering committee has been working behind the scenes with regards to where do we want to be a year from now, 2 years from now. How do we bridge all these tools and technologies? And it's it's just amazing the amount of ideas and the amount of stuff that's already out there that we should be able to leverage and identify those linkages. So your strong support and active participation is what makes the EMI SIG a solid standing group, and we continue to exceed participation um, from throughout the complex in our unique subcommittees. No, there's some proposals for additional subcommittees. Our unique subcommittees and the folks that work in those are the ones that are instrumental in the continued development and integration of all these great ideas that we all have. As some of the folks out there know, the napkin. Okay, let's look at it. Let's look at how this is linked. So if throughout this annual meeting, you will have the opportunity to also get some great presentations with regards to the interactive requirements document, some other tools that are being developed with the goal of making your job as an emergency manager for your particular site, facility, or plant more of less of the research and administrative burden and more of the focus on what things, what requirements, and what capabilities need to be looked at in a more um, focused manner. So the IRD, we have the ECRATs that gives you the ability to generate your own criteria and review approach document to conduct your assessments. We also have other modules that are being developed by the DMSC with regards to modeling, simulations, explanation of those things. Exercise Builder. Exercise Builder is has improved significantly. It's, there's more improvement that is coming. As a matter of fact, there was conversations recently, and we're moving forward to make Exercise Builder more of an integrated capability within the system. So we will talk about all this throughout the entire conference for the next 2 weeks, and I would encourage your participation. We have broken it down in different segments, so you're not in front of a computer all day, and you can still do some other things with regards to your day-to-day job and other responsibilities. So I encourage your participation. Please provide any feedback. And before I introduce um, Chief Hopkins, I would like I would really like to thank very directly the steering committee members and the subcommittee chairs who behind the scenes get on the meetings, look at the focus, look at the vision, and ensure that we're moving all in lockstep and barrel in the same direction. We don't have to have the same we don't have to be in the same lane, but at least we're all in the same highway going in the same direction. So to the subcommittee members and the chairs and the steering committees, David Stuhan and the rest of the steering committee who put a lot of thought and effort into this as volunteers, and they do have other jobs. And last but not least, none of this could happen if it wasn't for the NA41 support team that is behind the scenes. The the Jen Hutchins, Bernie, Berna, Vicky, Carol, the Stoudemires, Paul and Scott, Matt Murphy, RC, Rodney, Dr. Sheridan, Dr. Singleton, and I don't think I missed anybody. Oh, Vince, Mr. Salazar, and then we're trying to bring some new people in. So to all of you in the NA41 support team, is greatly appreciated the effort. It is professional. It is quality products, and for those of you out there, all you have to do is ask, and they will. they will provide you as much as they can in a very timely manner, and they can create amazing things that beneficial to the entire enterprise. So, welcome to all. I am I am confident that you will enjoy this new virtual 34th annual meeting. I know that it's going to be very informative. I know it's going to be uh, very interactive because of the conditions that we're in. Very interactive way of doing this. It is a great opportunity to also even bring some other people around that you might want to share the link or something to some specific presentations or workshops that they want to participate in. So I thank you for your kindness and for your professionalism and continued support to the EMI SIG, to DOE, NNSA, and the overall enterprise. So with that said, I will then introduce our next speaker and for a welcome. And it is my pleasure, my honor to introduce to all of you to Charles Hopkins, aka Chief Hopkins, who is NNSA's Associate Administrator and Deputy Undersecretary for Emergency Operations. He is responsible for the Departments of Emergency Management and Operations, continuity programs, and the complex wide emergency operations support. Mr. Hopkins has extensive federal experience and private sector knowledge in emergency management, including work with the IRS, the Department of Treasury, FEMA, Veterans Administration, Veterans Affairs, and he is a retired Navy nuclear programs officer. So, with that, please join me in welcoming the Associate Administrator and Deputy Undersecretary for Emergency Operations, Chief Hopkins. Thank you.
Every good ball player needs a great walk-up song. I'll say it again. Every good ball player needs a great walk-up song, and it doesn't get any better than Jimi Hendrix and Purple Haze. If you don't know who Jimi Hendrix is and you don't know what Purple Haze is, look it up. All right, let's get started. Good morning, everyone. It's great to talk to you again. But before I start my remarks, I want to wish everybody all the best, and I hope everyone is healthy and safe. Suffice it to say, the world has dramatically changed since we last met. Face-to-face at the annual meeting in beautiful Knoxville, Tennessee, sharing handshakes, smiles, and warm greetings with one another. It was just awesome. We've been working in a different environment, connected but disconnected, apart yet together, in a way many thought would not work effectively. But thanks to everyone's efforts to train and exercise, our one ship, one crew model and motto has kept us steady on course and speed. We've learned to fight the good fight in a new mode with renewed vigor and inventiveness. As proven and established in the past, the EMI SIG and its members continue to display the highest level of dedication and professionalism in supporting the enterprise's mission. The EMI SIG continues to amaze me with the products and the technical savvy that's consistently displayed and shared. That shared part, to me, is probably the best part about the EMI SIG, and it's so unfortunate that we won't physically get together after each session and discuss and share experiences real time. So rather than simply say it's too hard, many folks did a lot of great hard work, and I want to give a special shout out to the amazing group of professionals behind the scenes within the NA41 Directorate. Those folks worked with the tools available, pushed the edge of the envelope, and went above and beyond to ensure this, and I'm sure future EMI SIGs will continue to achieve even higher standards in performance, innovation, and responsiveness. And you have to admit, this virtual EMI SIG is very innovative. So speaking of innovation, it will be right in front of us as we conduct this annual meeting via virtual means and exercising some amazing technologies. We could have easily canceled the EMI SIG this year, but because of the passion and the dedication of the great team, the 34th annual EMI SIG will exploit all available technologies and exhibited resiliency and will go down in history in perfect line with this year's theme, Bridging the Emergency Management Enterprise. This is a good time in my opening remarks to talk about emergency management and continuity of operations, and I'll talk just for a minute. All right, maybe two. Is there any doubt in anyone's mind that these two important operational concepts don't go hand in glove? I don't really see how anyone can talk about one of these concepts without including the other. During the pandemic, the entire enterprise has utilized these very important operational concepts every day. And guess what? They work. Much more than that, they're working very well. I want to give another Bravo Zulu attaboy and pat on the back to all of you who have been in the trenches every day using these operational concepts to ensure your lab, plants, and sites responded and are recovering, all while ensuring your mission areas move forward. Shipmates, we're living real time the true importance of emergency management and continuity of operations every day. During this pandemic, our enterprise and our nation needed you, and you delivered. God bless you for who you are and what you do. So where are we today? Well, we're making some pretty good progress towards re-entry into the workplace across the enterprise. It may take a while, as many items of concern must be resolved before we can return to pre-COVID working conditions. When that happens, it will mark a very important milestone for the emergency management and continuity of operations mission. Your continued participation in these processes will ensure the safety and the welfare of our entire crew. Everyone is working together to get the department and the country back to a state of stability where we need to continue to work in an effective and efficient manner while maintaining the health and safety of our workers and the people of this great nation. So, Chief, you talked about where we were and where we are. Where are we going? Great question. I'm glad you asked. Growing up, I remember my parents telling me that necessity is the mother of invention. And sure enough, out of necessity, we all find ourselves having to redefine our workforce for the future. And not just the workforce, but just as important are the tools, our new knowledge and expertise, along with adapting some amazing technologies to improve our capabilities and capacities that only serve to hone our abilities to mitigate, prepare, respond, and recover from disruptions, natural or man-made disasters, and God forbid, even war. And just as important as I see things, we're going to have to be more vigilant, because it's not if, it's when we will have to face another pandemic, a natural disaster, and other unforeseen events. No surprise, these types of emergencies threaten the world and people's lives. Such global threats force the United States and other governments to implement higher levels of security at our borders, airports, ports, and public institutions. So with this in mind, we absolutely must enhance our ability to respond more efficiently, manage situations more urgently, and communicate more effectively. We need new approaches using existing and new technologies to assist us in managing crises. The technology must be reliable, scalable, and affordable. Such technologies will help us achieve a very important and steadfast goal: to save lives and restore livelihoods. Our national labs are part of a cutting-edge advances being implemented using artificial intelligence and data processing to assess, evaluate, and respond to these unpredictable and evolving events. Our scientists, researchers, and employees have all come together to produce and provide safety and life-saving equipment needed to combat the effects of COVID-19. As we move forward, we'll continue to need the ability and agility to respond effectively when called upon. I have faith in you and this nation, and for sure we'll get through this and move on to accomplish great things together. And it's through forums like the EMI SIG that promote your passion for the mission, and accelerate the expertise and technological improvements needed to accomplish the goals that I highlighted earlier in my remarks. Please use this amazing forum with your colleagues, not just today or this week, but year round, to improve your local capabilities and capacities so that we can become even better, or more better, as we say in Boston, at bridging the emergency management enterprise. Let me close by saying it again. During this pandemic, our enterprise and our nation needed you, and you delivered. God bless you for who you are and what you do. Oh, and one last item. Please stay healthy and safe out there. It's very important that you do. God bless and take care.
Now is great pleasure that I would like to introduce our keynote speaker for the 34th EMI SIG. Good friend of mine. I've known Miss Sanchez for many, many, many years. Uh, our folks were good friends and we were neighbors for a significant amount of time. So we've maintained contact for a long time. I've known Lisa, the athlete, the mother, the friend, and the professional that she is. So I would personally like to thank Lisa for making time out of her very busy schedule and doing the keynote address. And also, she's provided a great presentation for us, and she has made herself available afterwards if anybody wants to ask any specific questions and so forth. So, without further ado, a little bit of about Lisa Sanchez. Lisa Marie Sanchez has worked in the consumer goods industry for more than 30 years. She is the RD Vice President for Global Family Care for Procter and Gamble in beautiful Cincinnati, Ohio. Go Bengals! We have gone to some Bengal games together too. And 30 years of experience dealing in Procter and Gamble with paper products. It spans from toilet paper to diapers. And as an experienced research and development vice president, she's passionate about what she does, about managing innovation, new technologies, ways of doing new things, and working with people, delivering those goods and products that she wants, that folks need and desire. Miss Sanchez is very involved in other activities outside of work with different universities. She's a speaker. She's a member of board for different universities, providing leadership and guidance and mentorship to a lot of the new folks that are coming up and graduating from college, especially in these times. As the site leader for Procter and Gamble P&G in Cincinnati, she manages the day-to-day operations across the entire paper sector and ensures that emergency preparedness and response are planned to support ongoing delivery of the business because they are in the business of providing services to the entire world. Um, so one of the things that it's amazing about Lisa, Miss Sanchez, and what that I gathered from this, that's why I asked her if she could honor us by being our keynote speaker, is that although we're different, there's some things that we're much the same. So you have Procter and Gamble, a huge, huge company, huge enterprise, and they've had to suffer through this pandemic just that the rest of us in the enterprise with the nuclear sites, plants, and facilities. So it's a very different perspective on the approach, but usually the solutions and the objectives remain the same. So with that said, please join me in welcoming Miss Lisa M. Sanchez, great friend, great speaker, uh, a professional in the entire sense of the word. Please welcome Miss Lisa Sanchez. Thank you.
Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to addressing you this today in this so important topic of how do we do site crisis management and emergency response in the in light of coronavirus, which is going on among us. My name is Lisa Sanchez. I'm the R&D Vice President for the paper division of the Procter& and Gamble company, and I'm also the site leader for one of our 10 innovation centers in Cincinnati. In this unprecedented time of coronavirus, being tasked with the challenge to keep our site operational and working throughout this global pandemic. A little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. I'm a BS chemical engineer by training, and I generally work on the design of new paper products for the Procter& and Gamble company. All of our operations in Cincinnati have had significant amount of research and development capability, and the R&D organization owns the physical facilities and the sites where we work. I've been working for P&G for 31 years now, and throughout my entire career, we've had a number of different crises and emergencies that we've managed, but never one like the coronavirus that we're facing right now. This is unprecedented in its duration, the uncertainty that it brings to us. We're still thinking our way and working on solutions to the issue and hopefully future vaccination for all of our residents and employees. A little bit about the Procter& and Gamble company as context for this conversation that we're going to have about this side. We are a global consumer goods products company. We have over 100,000 employees around the world. We operate in more than 70 countries, and our brands have $4 to $5 billion worth of revenues. So we're a large company, and in the context of this global pandemic, we've been facing coronavirus in every region that we operate. Started in Asia, quickly moved over to Europe, and now North America and Latin America. As you think about our company, hopefully you recognize some of our largest leadership brands. We're a household goods products company, and we're best known by the brands that we sell. In my particular case, I work on the paper division, so I work on Charming, Bounty, Puffs, all paper products that have been in great demand through these coronavirus crisis. Our site today has 28 buildings on a site that is open. It has no fence, free access to our parking lots, and it houses over 1,000 residents that work at our site. This makes our situation very challenging as we think of coronavirus and how do we focus and really determine what are the essentials and critical site operations that we have to maintain in order to run our business while we keep the safety of our employees and our residents in mind. So as a way of background, I will tell you that we always strive to have plans and business continuity efforts that allow us to continue our operations and to support our residents and employees throughout any kind of emergency crisis. When it comes to infectious disease, it is quite complicated. There's a huge potential that an event can actually impact not only the employees' health and well-being, but also the operations of our site. And when we think about operations, we have to think about everything that we do, from securing materials for ourselves and from our suppliers, design of equipment and operation of such, all of the services we provide at the site, any supplies, and any customers that we have to ship our products to. So it's quite a long and big supply chain that needs to be addressed in the context of an emergency or a crisis, and in this particular case, an infectious disease crisis. We know that this could be very threatening to our business and our business models, and as a team, we strive to make any adjustments that we have to make to enact our business continuity practices in a way that we can keep on operating and running our entire business. Our goal when it comes to the site management is to have the appropriate response and make sure that we're able to deliver our business while following our key priorities. In this particular case, the health and safety of our employees is our topmost priority. We will always look at that first as our guiding light for all of the work that we do on the side. We will follow the local law. And in this particular case, as you know, a lot of the mandates and determinations happen on a state by state level. We strive to deliver our business, which includes making, packing, and shipping all of our products, but also to protect the future. We're a development organization that is working anything from 3 to 10 years out on innovation for the future. And it's hugely important that we're able to protect that innovation to support the future well-being of the company. Let's start with a few definitions. When we think about this coronavirus situation and infectious disease, we kind of like organize ourselves and look at epidemics as an increase in the number of cases a disease will expose. And that needs to be above the normal level that the population in the area will see for us to consider it an epidemic. A pandemic refers to an epidemic that has spread over several countries or continents, many regions. And as I mentioned before, coronavirus clearly has become a global pandemic. It started with our operations in Asia. We learned that in January of 2020. It expanded to primarily Europe through February. And by the beginning of March, here in North America and Latin America, we were starting to see the effects of this pandemic in our organization and in our area. One of the key issues with infectious diseases and with pandemics is that they're very unpredictable events. And it is unclear what the scope and duration is going to be. The great majority of the emergency crises that we usually address have more to do with weather events, hurricanes, tornadoes, things like that, where the behavior of the event is rather predictable and the duration can be ascertained with a certain amount of certainty. That is not the case with these infectious disease and certainly not with this particular global pandemic. We have a little bit of history dealing with these as a company. Procter & Gamble first faced infectious disease threats in 1997 with the bird flu. Originally, the first case was reported in Asia, and it had a significant impact in our organization in that region. By 2003, we had experience with SARS, and again, cases were reported in China at the time, and we had to enact some of our business continuity plans to deal with that particular epidemic. In 2009, we saw the swine influenza, and this started in Mexico with some reports of cases and some of the initial death toll there. And again, all of these three infectious disease threats were contained within one region and epidemics. Coronavirus had the dubious honor of being the first pandemic that we're dealing with, and the scale, size, and unpredictability of these disease is still an uncertain future for us and continues to drive a lot of the activities that we have on the site to enable the continuity of our business as we go through this unprecedented experience. In general, as a company, Procter & Gamble follows the CDC recommendations and guidelines. So when it comes to COVID and the spread of the disease, we saw the initial phases of this pandemic, which the CDC considers to be the investigation and the recognition phase, starting in January. In North America, we became aware and became active as an emergency crisis response team at the end of February, learning about what was going on in Asia from our counterparts there and then seeing the pandemic spread through Europe. This took a whole new toll as we moved into March, when really we saw the significant acceleration of the spread of the disease and the cases here in the United States. We are still on the acceleration portion of coronavirus. We've seen a peak in April and another peak in June in the state of Ohio where we reside. And we were expecting, based on our stay-at-home orders, as well as the significant close-down behavior in Ohio, that we will start the deceleration phase at some point in July, and that has not been the case. We've seen a resurgence of cases, and we continue to be on the acceleration and the ascending part of the curve for coronavirus. So that's our current situation. At Procter & Gamble, we follow again the CDC guidelines about the level of the alert that we have around these emergency crises. And in this particular case, when it's infectious disease, it's interesting because we start with a declaration from our global leadership team that we've entered an emergency crisis situation. That will be level 1. And then we assess the disease outbreak and the amount of cases, the situation going on in this particular case in the United States. And we move to level 2, again, determined by our global leadership organization. And but as the situation continues to escalate and we elevate, the responsibility then resides on the local area and the sites when we move over to level 3 and 4, which is where we've been for the last couple of months. We move into level 3 in late April, and we've been at level 4 since the beginning of May. All of those determinations are made on a regional basis based on the experience that we're having on what we call the local area, in this particular case, the state of Ohio. And we've seen a significant increase in cases that caused stay-at-home orders from the state of Ohio, and then a resurgence of cases when the stay-at-home order expired at the end of May, and increased cases again in June. So we are currently at level 4 in the region, and we have our site crisis management team determining what are all of the procedures and processes that we have to have in order to manage this particular crisis. Our overall strategy, it's really to leverage as much as we can external resources. For us, organizations like the CDC and the World Health Organization are key in providing guidance around the disease control, some of the prevention practices, and we follow them to the letter of the law. We also then take a look at our predefined and pre-aligned business continuity plans. These are usually aligned with the businesses. We serve 3 businesses in our particular site. And the business continuity plans are aligned with businesses ahead of time so that when an emergency occurs or a crisis happens like this, we have an action plan that we can take on right away. In our particular case, we host the family care business, which sells our paper products, Bounty Charming and Puffs, the feminine care business, which sells our feminine protection products, which includes Always and Tam brands, and our baby care business, which includes our brands Pampers and Loves. So it's quite an extensive part of our business with a lot of incoming raw materials, supply, production requirements, etc. Our goal as a team is to make sure that we are responding to this crisis on a timely manner, ensuring the operations of the site, supporting the operation of all of our manufacturing sites throughout the country, and making sure that we're effectively communicating with our residents, which includes our employees and our contractors, as to what are the site conditions, the site practices, and how we're operating through the crisis. It is hugely important that we partner with the agencies that own our contract workforce, because we want to make sure we have the exact same business crisis standards, level of protection, welfare for the residents, for our employees, as well as all of our contractors. And at this point, we move into residents and we treat them as one cohesive group. Our team today is made up of a number of different functions and backgrounds so that we have all of the skills and experience and expertise that we require to be able to enact our action planning. I serve as the site leader. My home function is research and development. Because the majority of the site is made out of our pilot operations and our labs, we take responsibility for the entire site, including office space and our commercial community. Supported by our human resources leader, our medical leader, our security leader. We have an external relations leader for all of our communications, Global Business Services, which is the group that houses our facilities management, and in general communications. So all of these folks are part of this cohesive team for the site that owns crisis management and business continuity. I keep on referring to the site. I wanted to give you a little bit of background about what our site looks like and what it's made of. We have 28 different buildings that we manage, and they house a large number of activities. We have 3 buildings that house large pilot operations. We have 2 buildings that house all of our utilities. We have labs in 22 out of our 28 buildings. We have office space in 26 out of our 28 buildings. We also house a fitness center, a daycare operation that is contracted out, but we own the site and the facilities for that. And we rent some of our buildings and space that are not occupied by P&G to external parties for which we provide all of the facility services, including one of our parking lots right now. It's been occupied by Amazon and used as the depot for all of their trucks on the Cincinnati area. So again, when it comes to managing the building, this is a 3-mile radius area, and it's an open campus with no fence. So so we manage the entire operation throughout all of that space. Our operating approach when it comes to the threat of COVID-19 and infectious disease is that we will monitor every aspect of the situation in the local area. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. We have 10 different innovation centers in Cincinnati. I represent one of those 10, and we coordinate across the board so that we have the exact same practices, procedures, and approaches at all of our innovation centers. We're considered part of the same geographical regional area, and commonality in our practices is essential to make sure we're delivering best approach, best practices for all of our residents. We decide on our team's meeting frequency and scope based on the alert level. So I activated our team the last week of February once it became very clear that we were going to have coronavirus issues in the United States. The team met 3 times a week through the month of March and April to set up all of our work processes, procedures, the scope of the work, and what needed to happen. As we got the situation under control and we upgraded all of our facilities with our coronavirus procedures, we move on to bi-weekly meetings through April, May, and June. And now we meet on a weekly basis as we maintain the status of the site. In our team, everybody has clear roles and responsibilities, and that makes it very easy for us to operate and to know where to go to. Each one of the team members, we have 12 people on the team, is on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week until we de-escalate the situation. And of course, we have backups and contingency resources in case somebody will not be available. Normally, we have a physical command center at the site, and in this particular crisis, because we have sent people home and only have essential and critical efforts going on at the site, we created virtual team spaces and virtual calls. And we have a 24/7 hotline, which is mostly focused on medical reporting of cases. So we don't have a physical space, but we have a virtual space that we've created in response to these particular crisis. Now, let's talk a little bit about the business inside of our site and what's going on in terms of trends, both nationally and state by state, because that provides the context for the response that we have. When you look at coronavirus across the United States, the state of Ohio is in that second group of states, not quite the darkest blue, but we have about 85,000 cases as of right now, which puts us in that category of 50 to 100,000 cases in total for the state. Unfortunately, our numbers are growing, and the rate of increase in the exposure to coronavirus is significant in the state of Ohio. So when we look at the regional effect of that, we are managing on an area that includes 3 states. So Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. Cincinnati happens to be in the border. It's called the tri-state area. And the states do a really good job of coordinating the efforts for our particular area. And so that the level of stay-at-home orders and other behaviors that need to be obeyed by are the same across the entire zone. Early in April, the state of Ohio issued stay-at-home orders, and so we bunkered down. We had very limited availability to the site. Only the essentials part of the operations were running. That required that less than 5% of our population would come to the site. And we started as a response seeing declines in the numbers of coronavirus in Ohio. Towards the end of the month, our numbers were looking very positive. So the state lifted the stay-at-home order and expanded our ability to do essential and critical work. At that point, we increased the occupancy of our site from about 5% to about 12% of the population, and we were running our most essential and critical pieces, including our pilot operations and our analytical labs. Unfortunately, 2 weeks after the relaxing of the stay-at-home orders by June 15, we started seeing a significant increase in the number of coronavirus cases in Ohio, and specifically in Hamilton County, where we are. The rate of cases was getting pretty high. So as a response, the governor has issued statewide mandatory mask wearing, travel advisories that keeps us in quarantine when you're traveling to Ohio from certain states with high positivity index in the US, and has significantly delayed any plans that we were putting together to have more and more of our employees and residents join this site. What did that mean to P&G? We follow all of the restrictions that are imposed by the state of Ohio. And so when the crisis started in March, we triggered work from home efforts for everybody except for our essential personnel. So in mid-March, we all went home, and about 97% of our population was working from home. By early June, once the stay-at-home orders were lifted, critical work was enabled. We were able to bring back to the site up to 12% of our population. And we were making plans to re-enter on a rotation basis with about half of our employees, somewhere between 40 and 50% towards the end of June. We stopped those plans once we saw the trends in Ohio about the increase in the number of cases. And right now, we're holding at least until September, after Labor Day, before we reconsider re-entering into the site. So that's our current situation. Makes our work very, very, very difficult because we don't have access to all of our equipment and all of our capabilities when we're working from home. Looking at the region, you will see that there's a corridor that runs diagonal throughout the chart. Cincinnati is on the bottom left-hand side of the chart, and we have the fastest growing number of cases in the state of Ohio. We have the largest number of cases in the general Cleveland area, and then Columbus is the other epicenter of confirmed cases. So we have a corridor of coronavirus that tracks along some of our larger cities in the state. What you see here is our regional update on the daily number of cases. And what you can see is the cases were spiking up for the first time right around mid-April, and stay-at-home orders were issued. We were able to bring the number of cases down to about 500 a day or less. And towards the end of May, we were seeing very encouraging numbers. So we rescinded the stay-at-home order. And once we did that, the cases started to continue to grow. We're at a rate now of somewhere between 1,500 and 1,600 cases a day in the state of Ohio, which makes it very challenging to expand our reentry into the site because of the overall regional situation with this particular crisis. So on a county by county basis, we're at the bottom left-hand corner of the chart, and you can see Hamilton County is red, where our facilities reside, but you can see all of the surrounding counties are red as well. And this is important because this is where all of our employees live today. So we are continuing to monitor down to a county by county situation. Now, what does that mean for our facilities, our crisis management, and how do we get ready to deal with something like this? I will tell you that our reentry principles coming back from coronavirus is a very well thought out, phased approach where we started with business critical employees. That's when we went from about 5% of the population to about 12% of the population. We're testing all of our procedures constantly. We're driving social distancing, especially in our laboratories where we have limited space due to the equipment. Uh, we continue to modify our access policies and procedures to the site. I will take you through some of those. And we expect to be at some point in the fall back in the office with two rotations of about 50% of the employees because at the occupancy that our facilities can safely withhold at this point in time and maintain all of the social distancing principles that we have put in place. To come up with this strategy, we asked each one of the businesses, remind you that we have three businesses in our side, to agree as to what are the core principles behind the work. So the site crisis team and the site leadership is in charge of executing the facilities procedures to drive a safe reentry into work. We are not at all in charge of deciding which parts of the work are critical or essential. Each one of the business does that. Based on their determination, we give full access to the facilities. We enable collaboration on site, and we follow the guidance for Procter & Gamble across the entire Cincinnati area and our 11 sites to drive our work and our reentry procedures. Now, the scope of the work is broad and complex. So we have site operations that would include everything from our utilities to our dock services, mail, dining, IT support, our bank, our childcare centers, all of our workout facilities, etc. We also own the readiness of all of the facilities. That includes access to our buildings, temperature checks at entry points, all of the new signage that has gone up to indicate how to use the areas, how to maintain all of our coronavirus procedures in place. We also own delivering personal protective equipment to the site. So P&G provides masks for all of its residents, face shields. We have disinfectant sanitizer stationed throughout all of our buildings. We also provide all of the site security, which now has been enhanced for two reasons. Number one, is like we have low occupancy, which requires more security patrols. And we have more checkpoints where security will do things like our temperature checks upon entry, etc. We have renewed our cleaning and sanitization procedures, and we have deployed best practices to enable a healthy site for the reentry. We own all of the site communication, which in our case includes weekly newsletters to all of our residents. That's both employees and contractors. And we do all of the support for our medical team from a facilities point of view, from quarantine rooms to contact tracing to cleaning and sanitization when cases are identified. So the scope of the work is broad, and it ranges across a number of different functions in our particular site. Now, what are some of our return to work procedures, and how does this gets managed through our organization? First thing that we've done is we've implemented high-speed temperature checks for anyone entering the site. If you register a temperature of 100.4 degrees Fahrenheit or higher, you will be asked to return home and given instructions on how to contact our health services organizations to see how to proceed. In addition to that, we provide masks on a daily basis for all of our residents. Anybody entering into the building needs to come into the building wearing a mask. We issue 3 masks a day, one to wear out throughout the day, one to go home with, one to come in the next morning. And you're expected to be wearing those masks while in the site or outside in our property, except when eating, drinking, or smoking. The rest of the time, we want 100% mask usage. We've divided our buildings into zones, and these zones are associated with the employees that have to work on those particular labs or office spaces. In a building like the one I reside at, we have about 500 residents. We have 13 different zones in that building. And when you access the building, you're expected to stay within your zone in that particular building. And then we created common areas or common spaces where people from 2 or 3 different zones can meet safely and to do whatever collaboration work they need to be doing together. That includes also our main lobbies for entry, our cafeteria, all of those are neutral zones that all zone residents can access. But we've been able to significantly reduce the number of contacts between residents by implementing the zoning system throughout the entire building. And the zoning includes everything from stairs from access to elevators to bathroom areas to lounge areas to kitchenettes, etc. At the end, I have a few pictures that I will show you that clearly illustrate how we're doing this work. Your work at the site needs to be recorded daily. So we started with a manual tracker that we keep on Teams, where every time you access the site, you have to enter which area you have been, what work you had done, and this was necessary to do contact tracing in case anybody would get sick. We have now automated this into an app that our residents have on their phones. So as soon as they enter the site, the app starts locating that phone, and we are able now to do contact tracing automatically using that particular digital tool. We have significantly increased the cleaning and sanitization through our building. We have twice a day cleaning of high touch areas. Think all of the doors, handles, knobs, and elevators, stairs, kitchenettes, common areas, copy rooms, etc. We also have a system where we put stickers in place on doors so that residents know when a room has been entered and that sticker is replaced by a cleaning crew. You're not allowed to enter any room that doesn't have that sticker. So, which is how we know that our areas have been sanitized. We are following all of our coronavirus procedures 100% of the time, with 2 exceptions. Medical emergencies or severe weather will supersede any coronavirus policies that we have in place. So we let go of the 6 feet social distancing, and we temporarily suspend the coronavirus procedures in order to address medical emergencies and severe weather. Those are the 2 reasons not to adhere to the coronavirus procedures. We've had to make significant investments in capability and tools to be able to implement this coronavirus response at the site. We have high-speed infrared cameras for temperature checks. We also have handheld temperature devices that we use as backups. We have 6 different entries into the site that have these temperature checks, and residents in buildings that don't have these temperature checks have to go first through the temperature check and then drive to their buildings. We have deployed hand sanitizer, disinfectant, disinfecting wipes. We provide that centrally throughout the entire site. We deliver to all of our labs and pilot operations, and we have them readily available in all of our office space. P&G is making masks as part of this effort. So we have 6 different manufacturing locations throughout the United States that make upwards of 250,000 masks a week. And those masks are used to support all of our employees in our manufacturing sites and all of our employees at our development centers, like my innovation center. So, and they get distributed through our facilities team. We're also providing gloves, face shields, and other personal protective equipment based on individuals' work groups, jobs, and whenever a 6-foot social distancing cannot be maintained, this incremental personal protective equipment comes into play for us. We've been making our own face shields as part of our Force for Good program, and both masks and face shields are donated on a regular basis by P&G to first responders, hospitals throughout the entire area. We have seen a 20 to 30% increase in cleaning effort with all of these high touch areas and cleaning the office space and desks. And we've also have invested in about a 10% increase in security personnel to be able to do the incremental number of patrols that we have throughout the site, as well as to support temperature checking upon entry and other follow-up related to coronavirus. We've put new signage all throughout the facilities, from new parking signage for those that have to come in and do their temperature check, to signs inside the building illustrating the usage of masks, different building zones, and any new procedures at the site. So all of that has been done by this team that is the crisis management team. When it comes to infrastructure, we had to step back and think long and hard about all of the things that we needed to do for the site. We have to reevaluate and reset all of our HVAC systems so that we could actually turn the air in sufficient quantities and make sure we could maintain a safe work environment. We had to look at all of our water sources and flush and recondition all of our water fountains, mostly because we've been out of the buildings for now 4 months, and they're not getting used like they normally will. So in getting ready for this re-entry of 50% of the population at the time, we were able to clear out all of the water lines and flush everything. We've been pushing really hard on the right coronavirus behavior. So hand washing for 20 seconds or more with soap and water is a huge, important part of our coronavirus work process and procedures. And what we realized early on in February and March is that the water temperature in our sinks was too cold for people to feel comfortable washing their hands for 20 seconds. So one of the things that we had to do early on was increase the output of our boiler and warm up the water so that we could ensure compliance with hand washing. And we've been very successful at that. We have established isolation quarantine rooms on all of the entry points and in support of our medical facilities in case a case is identified in the building or determined that somebody that is walking into the building has contaminated the area, and they can be quickly isolated into these quarantine rooms. And of course, we've identified all of the high touch surface areas that require increased and enhanced cleaning. So those are some of the things that we have had to step back and think our way through in terms of infrastructure and making sure that the site is ready for all of the new coronavirus work processes and procedures. From a communication point of view, we partner very closely as a site with our medical and HR group to make sure we are having accurate reports of all of the suspected and confirmed cases of coronavirus. I'm happy to report we have had no acquisition of coronavirus at our sites at all in Cincinnati. And the few confirmed cases that we've had have been folks that have gotten contaminated outside of the work environment. The link across medical, HR, and the facility teams is crucial in order not only to have a very accurate assessment of the suspected and confirmed cases, but also to be able to follow up with the appropriate sanitization procedures and cleaning of the areas where some of these employees that are suspected or confirmed have been at our site. We have a contact tracing tool that I described a little bit earlier. It's an app that works on our phones. It's a geolocation app, so it actually traces your phone location and the proximity of that phone to another phone in the program. So we can trace back 48 hours worth of time for any contact that is 15 minutes or more. And we do that on an automatic dashboard that allows us to immediately know what to go off and do when we have a suspected case in our hands. We're keeping track of all of our visitors, and this is a challenging undertaking because we have contractors, we have service providers. So think of all of the folks that come into our site to do maintenance, repairs in our equipment, plumbers, electricians, calibration of our equipment, etc. And as well as occasional visitors that are only allowed with a host on essential work at this point in time. And as we think about our visitors, we have a log where we have to pre-register anybody that is coming into the site that is not a resident. That visit has to be approved by the site. Once it gets approved, that visitor has to comply with background information about where they've been for the last 14 days prior to the visit, etc. And then they have to go online and complete our contact tracing information in case something will happen after the visit so that we can complete the contact tracing. We do the exact same checking when our employees or residents are visiting non-P&G facilities. Often our employees have to go to suppliers or manufacturers of our equipment or raw material providers, etc. And before they can visit any of those sites, they have to confirm and provide perspective about the coronavirus procedures at those sites and make sure that they're in line with the standards that we have internally at our own sites. So that also requires clearance from the site team as we expose our employees to a different location and a different population. The last thing we do and that we own is the response to any state or federal regulatory agencies. So if the Ohio Department of Health or OSHA or any other regulatory body needs information, wants to come audit, inspect any of our sites, our team will be responsible for hosting all of those visits and providing all of the appropriate information back to the state and federal agencies. Now, as we think about our employees and the return to work, we've done a lot of work to get the site ready to be a safe, clean environment where employees can feel confident that they can come do their job and be safe from coronavirus. And but they also have to realize that the place they're coming back to is not the same place they left. A lot of things have changed in the look and feel of our site, as well as in the work processes and procedures that we follow. So the first thing that we're constantly communicating to employees is that our return to site is a gradual phased approach. So we went from 5% of the population to about 12% of the population. Our plan is to increase to about 25% of the population on our way to 50% of the population on 2 rotations. And what that means is at full occupancy, we will be in the office 1 week and working from home 1 week. So that at any point in time, occupancy at our site is 50% or less. The entire facilities have been redesigned to create this better normal, including our separated zones, our new common areas, our cleaning and sanitization procedures. Our work groups are now hybrid groups. They at all times have people that are working at the site and people that are working from home. And it is incumbent upon our work processes and managers to make sure that we are driving the ability for those groups to work together and collaborate without any issue. From a safety measures point of view, we've talked a lot about this. Social distancing is our key primary way of keeping everybody safe. We do temperature checks coming into the building. We have mandatory mask wearing and no meetings with more than 10 people anywhere on the site as mandated by the state of Ohio. The great majority of our meeting rooms that used to hold anything from 12 to 15 people, today, socially distanced, will hold 4 to 5 people. So we certainly are encouraging our teams to work virtually, to have virtual meetings, and to only do at the office what must be done at the office because you require access to the facilities, the equipment, the lab, the pilot operations. So a very different place than the place we left in March. We always encourage folks to stay at home if they feel unwell. We want to make sure that people are taking good care of themselves, consulting with their medical provider, proactively monitoring your own health. And we ask people to let your managers know if you've been in contact with somebody with coronavirus so that we can trigger kind of like the investigation procedure and tie it back to our HR and medical systems. It is important that coronavirus doesn't become a stigma, and all of our employees are getting paid full time. So there's no incentive financially to come to work when you're sick. And that's important to us because we want to make sure people are working at their full capacity, but maintaining the health and well-being of the entire organization is our top priority. Now, I wanted to show some of the examples of how we're thinking and changing the facilities as we go through this coronavirus response. So these are pictures of our side. In this first set of pictures, you will see the outside of our building with a revolving door on the left-hand side, and all of the 6-foot social distance markings in front of the building as people come in and line up to come into work. We have high-speed cameras. They're on the bottom, on the center of the pictures, and they take less than a second to take people's temperatures. So this is super helpful because we can go through temperature check rather quickly. We also have staggered starting times for our work groups to avoid a line and the congregation of people outside of the building. All of our lobbies have been marked by those blue decals with 2 footprints, and they clearly indicate where there's 6 foot of social distancing needs to be maintained upon entering the buildings. Every building has this signage. It's common across the entire Cincinnati area, where it gives guidance on how to properly wear masks, what are safe behaviors at the workplace, make sure that people are meeting virtually, wearing your mask, limit movement, staying within your zone, staying 6 feet apart. There's reminders of that throughout the entire building. Our common areas have been re-evaluated, and the signage is on to maintain social distancing. This happens to be one of our lounges. They're kind of like the break areas in the different floors. We have one per floor in our building. And what you can see here is there was a sofa on the back end and 3 tables, and typically this area could sit 15 to 20 people. Today, this particular area sits 4 people. 1 person per table, as clearly indicated in the chairs and the decals on the table, and 1 person on the sofa on the back end. So we've gone from 15 to 20 to about 4 people can be at the lounge area at the same time. This is an example of our copy rooms, and so you see the copier at the back end. You see all of the decals on the floor. In this particular room, we only have space for 2 people to be in the copy machine, the person that's picking up or making their copies, and the 1 person waiting. If you come to one of these rooms and there's 2 people already in, you're asked to leave and come back at a later time when the copier is available. These are our kitchenette and dinette areas, and what you can see here is where we typically have a refrigerator, a microwave, a coffee machine, and it's used for food prep for folks that bring their lunch from home or have stuff stored in the refrigerator. We have clear marking and indication. Typically, you would have 6 to 8 people could be in this kitchenette facility using any of the areas at the same time. Today, we can only have 3 at a time. 1 in front of the microwave, 1 in front of the sink, 1 in front of the refrigerator. So we have significantly reduced our occupancy. Our cafeteria is all set up for coronavirus. We now have a clearly delineated line for the cafeteria, clearly indicated 6 foot distancing. Our line only works one way, which means you will go in, you place your order online up front, so you don't have to use the ordering machine in the cafeteria. We've enabled that through everybody's computer access. Then you go in, you pick up any snack, any drinks, your food order, and you pay at the end of the line, at the end of the counter. If you so happen to forget to pick up something like your drink or whatnot, you're asked to exit the cafeteria and re-enter because we only have traffic in one direction. You cannot double back. So you're welcome to come for a second time and do the line on the one direction of traffic. Our dining room area, which is right next to our cafeteria, these are some illustrations of tables that used to hold on the left-hand side 4 people, 2 on the sofa and 2 on chairs in front of the sofa, now hold 1 person per table. You can see on the individual tables in the middle where there's only 1 chair sitting there, and you can see on the back of the picture all the chairs pile up because they're not in use. And then our 6 folks dining tables now can host 2 people, completely socially distanced. People are asked to come to the cafeteria, eat, not talk, not have meetings, and leave because you're not wearing your mask when you're eating. So that's what our cafeteria looks like right now. Elevators and the path to elevators are clearly indicated, low occupancy, 2 people cabin rides. The elevators are zoned, so you'll see that You know which stairs and which elevators you can and cannot use in our building based on the color zone that you've been assigned to. And there's clear signage, which I'll show in a minute, all throughout. Office space is one of the things that we have had to work at the hardest. We are in a cube office space setting, and we have these bays of 4 cubes that are identical throughout the entire building. And what we quickly realized is that there's no 6 foot of social distancing for the 2 people sitting next to each other in the cube. So we have 3 possible configurations. All of them require 50% occupancy. We can have everybody against the wall or the window, which is the top illustration, in a row, and that will ensure social distance. We can have everybody on the opposite side, on the aisle of the cubes. That's the illustration in the middle. That's still 50% occupancy. Or we can have a toggle pattern where you can alternate those occupancy. The space in between bays is more than 6 feet, but the space in between chairs is only 5 feet. So because of that, we have to go down to 50% occupancy. We've relooked at our entire population, our entire building, and put folks in 2 rotations. We color coded the rotation. So we have an orange rotation of 50% of the population and a purple rotation of 50% of the population, and they'll be coming to work when we return on alternating weeks. On the week that you're not at the office, you're working from home. Our workstations and the sanitization around the workstations includes the clear placement of a dated sticker. So all of our cleaning crew will come through, clean and sanitize your workstation, put a sticker on it with the date. When you come to work, the first thing you do is you remove that sticker and throw it away. That way the cleaning crew will know that night to come back and re-clean your station. We are not allowed to share cubes or stations. They're personal, individual stations, and they sanitize both the cube and your chair where you've been sitting all day. So that's our procedure for workstations. Huddle rooms and huddle room configurations. Most of our huddle rooms will hold anything from 4 to 6 people normally for a meeting, and you can see the layout there. And most of our huddle rooms have gone down to 2 or 1 person occupancy. If we have a need for more people to go into the space, we can have setups where somebody is sitting but far removed from the main table in the room to enable a slightly higher occupancy. So that's kind of like how we're setting ourselves up for it. And in a minute, you're going to see the signage associated with those meeting rooms. So these will be any of our meeting rooms. We'll have that yellow sticker. It's the sticker that says that room has been sanitized. Upon opening the door, that sticker tears. And you know that you can go into any room that has a yellow sticker because it's been cleaned and sanitized. And then at the door of every meeting room and space that we have, there's an occupancy sign. Most of our rooms that used to hold up to 6 people are a 1-person huddle room now. Most of our rooms that used to hold 12 to 15 people are 4 people huddle room now. And the state of Ohio requires gatherings of 10 or less. So even our largest rooms that could accommodate more people socially distanced are only supporting 10 people maximum occupancy. So any meetings that are larger than that are virtual right now. So our building zones are 13 in our entire building, and they're clearly indicated. All of the signs look the same, so it will be the building. In our case, we have a Family West and a Family East building, and the zones are colored. There are 13 zones, and every single area, whether it's a lab, a set of stairs, a bathroom, an elevator, an office space, a break area, has a zoning signage that clearly indicates where you are. We've issued maps to everybody on the site. We have a training program that people have to complete before they re-enter the site, and it includes all of our procedures as well as all of our zones and how you're supposed to operate within the zones. And we have pretty high compliance from the population of residents with this program. The zones give you routes to come in and out of the building. They minimize the contact between groups across the building. And in the case of a confirmed case, it allows us to minimize the number of people that have to be sent home in quarantine because of coronavirus. As we return to the office, we've completed very successfully all of the facilities readiness, and we feel excited that we're ready to have our folks come back to work. However, the most difficult part for us is the behaviors and the culture and the kind of collaboration we want to establish in this new environment of coronavirus. We have a lot of our employees voicing their concerns and asking questions, which we address constantly throughout department meetings and share outs, our weekly newsletter, etc. Most of the concerns right now are on health and is there any risk with me coming to the office? What are the safety procedures? Childcare and school has become a very big challenge because we have a large number of parents in our population. And as they're trying to make personal decisions about schooling their children at home or going with one of the hybrid models, it's a difficult choice to make. We want to make sure our employees take care of their families first. We want to make sure they don't feel that they have to choose between their children and their work. And we make all of the accommodations that we possibly can to enable the right setup for all of our employees. It's on a one-on-one basis. Each case is individual set of solutions. We require 100% mask wearing, and that proves to be tiresome and difficult at times. We have reports of low-level headaches for some folks when they're breathing CO2. We provide all of the masks to make sure we have a mask standard for the entire site, and then we do walkthrough audits to make sure that everybody that's on site is actually wearing masks. We get a lot of questions from employees about loss of productivity and the time it takes to commute to and from the office. Shouldn't that time be better spent working from home? And we have a lot of work that can be done from home, but we have some work that has to be done at the site for access to the lab and the equipment. And because of that, we will always be on a hybrid model for the foreseeable future, where some of our employees are working from home and some of our employees are working at the site. So because of that, we get a lot of questions about, how do we ensure inclusion when you have split teams, when part of your team is working from home and part of your team is working at the site. And we work really, really hard to provide all of the right virtual and digital tools to enable full participation of all of our employees through Zoom, Teams, and many other tools that enable both digital and video connection to the site and to the working teams. Some employees have concerns about voicing their restrictions because they're required to talk to HR. And so we're using the line managers to facilitate those conversations and to make sure that we can extend the maximum possible accommodations. And then we always get questions, if it's working right now, with most of us working from home, why change? Why bring more folks to the site? And the main reason for that is because we want to establish the level of collaboration and community that we need in order to be successful long-term, driving our innovation forward. So what does return to the office looks like? So this is our model to return to the office. The left-hand side shows you what we're doing on work from the office. The circle, the orange one on the right-hand side, talks a bit about working from home. And while working from the office provides connection and onboarding for new employees or transfers into our organization, it allows for face-to-face, we call them messy meetings. It gives us the office infrastructure to support our work, high-speed internet access and access to our entire database, social connections, one-on-one conversations, and a good way of physically establishing work-life boundaries. Working from home gives us more flexibility, no commuting, provides for confidential conversations all the time, all of the comforts of home, not having to wear a mask. Work-life balance is a little bit more blurry, and because you're working from your home space, but there's a lot less interruptions too for most of the people who are working from home. At the end of the day, we have to make sure that as we put together this hybrid model, we're ensuring the health and safety of all of our employees. We're driving the core parts of the work, what's business essential, business critical, and what's needed to secure the future of the company from a business point of view. connections to the teams, whether you're working at the office or from home, connections to your immediate manager, and a culture of inclusion that allows everybody to feel fully contribute to their best, whether they're in the office or working from home. At the end of the day, we're looking forward to use some of these learnings using digital tools and working from home to see productivity gains as we establish new work processes and procedures that no doubt will stay with us after coronavirus. Our ability to link remotely with our pilot lines, our manufacturing facilities that enable more support from the central organization to those events that are usually happen at a different location. We're also finding out that we're doing more peer reviews and discussions on our learning plans up front because we're virtually connected and we want to make sure we've had all of those conversations, and things like that will lead to productivity improvements that will stay with us. At the end of the day, as a company, I'm very proud to work for a company that is very principle based and not rule bound. So we will always do what's right for our employees, and we will start by respecting any and every health concern. We'll support childcare restrictions and school requirements. We will ensure peace of mind for all of our employees. We've implemented incremental support on our mental health programs because people are suffering from distancing and isolation. We will, of course, always follow the local law and guidance and work really hard at delivering the business while meeting all of these requirements for our population. Our flexibility will remain throughout and after coronavirus. People need to keep an open mind about returning to work, but this idea of working at home and working at the office and having the best blend of the two is actually something that we intend to keep going forward. We treat everybody as an adult and we do what makes sense. We're very flexible in our arrangements, but we still have guidelines and policies that we follow in order to ensure equity across all of our different work groups and that we can deliver the business. At the end of the day, keeping open communication is key. So we are working really hard to make sure we're sharing all of the information, best practices, what's working, what's happening externally, and we evolve and adapt like we've been doing since March to any external situation that we face to ensure that our facilities and our sites are ready to provide a safe working environment in the light of this coronavirus epidemic. So at the end of the day, we are excited to say that we're working really hard, but really able to deliver our business. We've maintained the health and safety of our sites and all of our employees. In our particular case, we've had a very low incidence of cases where people have contracted it through mostly a relative or outside of work and reported it to us. There's been no contamination at any of our sites in Cincinnati. At any of our 10 innovation centers, and we're very excited and proud of that result. And it's because the sites have been very responsive, putting policies, procedures, and work processes that really, really help us keep a very safe site. Going forward, we've established testing capabilities. So P&G has developed its own testing capabilities available to all employees. It's a one-day turnaround on results, which allows us to respond rather quickly to suspected cases and confirmed cases and maintain the health and safety of the sites. And we are looking forward to the next stage of the reentry where we can have more of our folks return to work as the external environment improves. And hopefully as the year comes to an end and the next year comes in, we'll be in a much better position against coronavirus and this global pandemic. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about some of our work processes and procedures at Procter & Gamble and some of the work that we've been doing to enable the safe operations of our innovation centers in Cincinnati. Thank you and have a great day.
Lisa, thank you so much. That was a wonderful special presentation, great keynote address, and I know there are a lot of questions. And actually, if you have a question, please use our chat tool to enter your question. And I actually already have one question, if you would be so kind. The question came from, you mentioned you had some automated contract tracing. Is this smartphone technology promoted by Google or Apple?
Yes, actually, we have contact tracing automation. We just started that about 2 months ago, and it is supported by Google and Apple both, and it works on iPhones and Androids. It's an app from PricewaterhouseCoopers. It's the same technology that they use in hotels when they give you the opportunity to open the door of your hotel with your phone. It's the exact same app with the same algorithm that PricewaterhouseCoopers had, and they donated that as part of the coronavirus effort. So it's a geolocation-based app. It basically uses the Wi-Fi signal on your phone and the strength of the Bluetooth signal to know whether you are in proximity to another device in the system. Now, it doesn't locate you, it locates your phone. So if you leave your phone behind in your desk or don't bring it to work, there's no contact tracing to be done. And but it's smart enough to know if two people are within 6 feet of each other, but in two separate rooms, because your Bluetooth signal goes down in strength, then the algorithm problem solves for that, so it doesn't give you false contact.
Well, that's fascinating. I need to get one of those just for my Apple Watch. So, and I think we have another question from a guest speaker that you all know and love. JB, you had a question. Would you care to ask that?
Yes, Lisa, thank you very much for taking time of your busy schedule to join us in a great presentation. A lot of the things that you covered and discussed in there are instrumental to what we do on a day-to-day basis throughout the entire complex. And you brought out some great points that I know some of our folks in SimTech, which is our technologies folks, are looking at, and also the continuity of operations folks have been looking at, trying to resolve this accountability issue and also access control. One of the things that we're looking at is, how do you deal with you spoke about the phone, you spoke about the capability that you have. One of the constraints and limitations that we have in our facilities is the ability to have some of those communication devices in some of the limited areas. It's how do you tackle some of those issues within your facility? Because I know that there's some sections of your facilities you protect them, you have to protect information. How do you guys deal with some of those issues?
So for us, the biggest issue is to protect the confidentiality of our information for intellectual property, right? We have strong competitors. We want to keep our science secret so that we can protect what's proprietary to Procter & Gamble. And because of that, we have limited access to certain labs and certain parts of our facility. We also have typically a policy of need to know. So not everybody in the organization has to know what's going on every project. When crises like these come, that makes our job that much harder. So in places where we cannot take in devices or we cannot digitally transmit information, we typically use a buddy system to make sure that people who are working in those spaces are working in a safe manner and whatnot. And wherever we can, we have two people together in the same lab doing the work. And wherever we cannot, we have these checkpoints that we do every 2 minutes, every 3 minutes, to ensure the safety because we cannot transmit.
Thanks, excellent.
I don't have any other questions unless there are some more that would like to be entered into the chat tool. But if we are out, or is there anything that you'd like to add, JB or Lisa?
Well, I'll, since there's no other questions coming in, I'm just going to ask Lisa with regards to the environment of the workforce. How are they handling all this additional steps that they have to take for coming into work? Understandably, that probably not everybody has to come to work, but those who have to come in, how are they taking it with regards to parking, accessing buildings, lunch, all those things? What's the overall environment?
So in general, I have to tell you, as a site leader, I couldn't be happier with the response we've gotten from our folks. We over communicate why we're doing what we're doing. That's an important part, is understanding why is this so important? Why do I have to wear this mask? Why do I have to go through these temperature checks or anything else that we're asking them to do? And everything starts for us with the safety of the organization. This is not about the business or making money. That's important, but not more important than the safety of our own folks. And whenever you communicate why you're doing it, people tend to comply with a lot more grace. So anything that I've asked folks to do, whether it's coming at a certain time, park in certain places, which we do to lower our occupancy, we are actually we have 7 different doors. After the temperature check, we send people to enter on the door that makes the shortest path to their zone. So people have to walk outside and go to a certain door to come into the building, and they comply with all of that because they know it's what keeps us safe. It's pleasant to hear that people feel safer in our buildings because they're cleaner and better kept than their own homes. And I take that as a compliment when you're the site leader. But if people understand why, they will go a long way to comply. We also are blessed that we're a science-based organization, right? We're a research and development facility. So it doesn't take a lot to explain to people how the science works and how transmission works. So that has been a blessing for us. We are at a relatively low occupancy. We have about 22% of our resources that are required to come to work because their work happens in our labs or in our pilot facilities. We have another 10 to 12% of what we call volunteers, and they're folks that could work from home, but they find that they're more efficient working in our facilities. So one of the volunteers is my statistician, and her computer works so much better when she's logged into our network than when she's at home just on her Wi-Fi. So for her, coming to work is a productivity improvement. So we enable those folks that feel better coming in. And frankly, it's a personal call, right? Some people have kids at home or whatnot, and they can be more efficient from the office. So our goal is to bring in about 50% occupancy as we continue to bring in more people into work, because that's what we can manage safely.
Thank you so much. We do have one other question, but we've run out of time, so I apologize. I will have to have this question sent to you through our chat. And for any other questions that we weren't able to answer, or some questions that do come up, I know how that goes. Go ahead and use our Attendify to search for Lisa Sanchez's name in the speaker section of our Attendify app. And her contact information is there, and she'd be happy to answer your questions. Again, thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you to Chief, to JB, David Stuhan. I'm so glad to be part of this. I'm so glad we got to still do this. I'm just sorry that we don't get to hug necks and all that, but I'm okay not sharing your germs. So please stay safe and stay tuned. We'll be having our panel discussion on COVID-19 lessons learned. Thank you so much for joining us at our first ever virtual opening session.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Greatly appreciate it.